Welcome back to CryptosRUs. I'm George, or all George. So good morning. Welcome to another market open stream. Today's market looks bleak, looks red, very, very red. And that's because PCE inflation data came out and it's no good. It shows January's inflation actually going up from December. This is a little bit different than a CPI reading that we had not too long ago. So does this mean the market is effed? Does this mean Fed Chair Powell's soft landing is now out the window? Let's talk about it, and let's talk about, of course, Bitcoin. So, good morning, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are minutes away from the market bell, but right now, take a look. The futures market, not looking good. Dow is already a negative 400, 403. NASDAQ down almost 2%. The market is looking red. And that's because everyone is spooked this morning by the PCE inflation data, which shows that key inflation rose about 0.6% in January, which is more than expected. It was expected to be 0.4%, so it actually went up about 0.2% more than expected. And here's a good look of it right here, okay? So if you see this, September, PCE, the overall inflation from PCE was 6.3, and then we went 6.1, 5.6, 5.3, but then we went up, boom, to 5.4. Okay, unfortunately, we did not go down or stay the same, right? CPI showed differently. CPI actually showed that inflation, overall headline and core inflation both went down, just a little bit less than expected, but still both numbers went down. But PCE is showing different. PCE headline inflation went up, and core inflation also went up by 0.1% from December. So, what does this mean? Does this mean that we are effed? Does this mean that Powell has to be a lot more aggressive now with the next rate hike? Well, possibly. So I was looking at this. This is what's the probabilities right now. So as of right now, I think majority of people still think that it's going to be a 25 basis point hike come March, right? So there's 67% of people that think so. 33% think it's going to be a 50 basis points now because of today's reading, right? So that's kind of like what's on the table right now. Inflation, even though we had many 6 straight months of data showing inflation coming down, we may be tapering out a little bit and maybe even heading a little bit up. That's the thing. One reading of PCE showing going up is not so bad. But if the next one in March shows that February also went up, well, that's a problem. That's a problem because then that's going to leave the Fed no choice but to be super hawkish with the remaining rate hikes, the remaining FOMC meetings, which I pulled up here. So the next one is going to be in March. Then we skip a month. Okay, we skip April, and then we're going to have what in May, and then June, July, right? So all these following meetings. When is the rate hike going to stop? It was anticipated that maybe May would be the last one. If we're doing 25 basis points in March, 25 basis points, that'll bring us to 4.75%. And then May, that'll bring us to 5%. That was when it was supposed to stop. But now maybe there's going to be another one in June to bring us to 5.25%. And inflation is really bad. Maybe they go even higher in July, another one to do 5.5. Let's hope that's not the case. Right? Or they may go more drastic, front-loaded a little bit. In March, they do a 50 basis point hike. And then in May, they do a 25 basis point, still pushing us over 5%. That's what Fed Bullard wants, but no one else wants that besides him. But that's the reality of the situation is this inflation data is no good. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Before everyone jumps to this conclusion that, hey, we are all screwed, right? We're going to go into a deep recession. Here's the good thing. Here's the caveat to all this. The labor market is still extremely strong, okay? Even though we had heard of some of these public traded companies laying off some staff and sometimes significantly, overall unemployment rate is still at a 55-year low. The jobless claims, the unemployment claims week over week is still dropping. So that means there are still a lot of people that are working, okay? There's still a lot of people spending, and that is why inflation has not come down as much as it has. Now, here's also the thing to keep in mind. Will inflation actually go down to 2% like Powell wants, right? All these rate hikes, supposed to curb inflation, but will it really go down to 2% considering that 40+% of the overall circulating supply of dollars has gone up within the last 2 years? So, I mean, we got to put things in perspective. Even though he's been talking about, Fed Chair Powell's been talking about going back to 2%. Will we ever get to 2%? Maybe we just stay at 3 or 4. It becomes entrenched. That's something that he says. Maybe inflation just becomes entrenched because we just have so much more money floating around. That is why, regardless of what they're going to do with rate hikes, inflation is going to stay high, and we just need to invest in something that outperforms inflation. That's really it, right? So, but anyways, Janet Yellen says inflation is coming down, but core measures remain elevated. I mean, yes. Yes. No offense to Janet Yellen, but like whenever I see a picture of her like this, I can't imagine she actually knows what she's talking about. I don't know. It just seems like she's in way over her head. She just listens to what Powell and others are telling her to do and say, and that's pretty much it. I don't know. I'm being mean, but that's just how I see it. I just can't picture her actually knowing what's going on. But anyways, outside of that, DXY is also skyrocketing right now to 105. We were at 104, right? Going up to 105. One point is not the biggest deal, but you may be wondering why DXY is going up if inflation data is going up, because Wall Street is associating that the U.S. inflation situation is going to be the same everywhere. Everywhere meaning around the world. So if U.S. is seeing inflation go up, that means inflation will probably be higher in Japan and China and Europe. And whenever inflation is higher, people flock to the dollar. So that is why the dollar index is going up. It's weird to think about that. Like they're kind of just making that association like somehow if inflation is up, right, others will just somehow suffer worse than us. You can't really say that, but it so far has been true, right? But whenever the DXY goes up, it's not good for anything. I mean, let's take a look at the market right now. This has not refreshed, but yeah, whenever a DXY goes up, the market does not do well. People sell off equities and go back into bonds. The bonds are not paying pretty much anything these days. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But that brings me to Bitcoin. All this talk about inflation, about people's buying power being diminished, this silent tax that exists, right? Will it ever go back down to 2%? We don't know. I have a feeling we won't. We won't be back to 2% because when you increase the money supply by 45%, how can we go back to normal, right? And that is why Satoshi created Bitcoin back in 2009 after the last recession, after not trusting our Fed to do the right thing or to do the right thing for the people, Maybe they do the right thing for the banks, but not for the people, right? And 13 years ago, Satoshi created the Bitcoin symbol. It's wild. It's wild to think. It's wild to think. No one has heard of or heard from Satoshi for how many years, right? But he started something that if he's still alive would be pretty proud of, I would say. Something I don't even think that he or she or the group thought would ever happen. But I mean, it's really amazing to think about within the last 14 years how far Bitcoin has advanced, and we're only getting started still, right? It's crazy. But right now, there are a lot of bullish sentiment, so don't let today fool you. Bitcoin has been recovering. You guys know I've been talking about that quite a lot. But this is interesting. Today's the last Friday of this month, so there is a CME futures expiration today, right? But the CME premium on these Bitcoin futures is sky high. It's higher than what you can buy Bitcoin at on Coinbase or Binance. People are flocking to these futures. The premium is around 9%. That means they are paying 9% above the index price just to buy these futures. Why would they be doing this? Because demand is very, very high. Demand is high because, number one, we are recovering. Number two, no one likes inflation and people want to opt out. And number three, it's a great trade, probably. But that's pretty wild. We haven't seen this kind of premium. You can see the blue line, right? The blue line is actually below, for the most part, has been below the price of Bitcoin. So this has not happened since November of 2021. And November 2021 was the peak for Bitcoin when it was at $69,000. So the demand for Bitcoin right now is the same as it was at $69,000. Think about that. That's insane. That's insane. Okay, we're magnitude, smaller than 69,000, and yet demand is right back up. This is good. This is very, very good. What's also good is we are following patterns from before, right? Coming up from bottom, showed many patterns like this. 2019 it happened, even going back 2016, this has happened. So even though Bitcoin may seem like it has no pattern, randomness, right, affected by the macro conditions, I say that all that's true, but sometimes when you look carefully, you'll see patterns that are very, very similar to previous cycles that we have been through before. So, good stuff. And then lastly, look at this. This is the first time this has ever happened for Bitcoin, ever. The holders that's been holding for 10 plus years, okay? 10 plus years. The amount of Bitcoin that they hold is now more than the Bitcoin residing on the centralized exchanges today. That's a monumental accomplishment if you think about it, okay? I mean, we know that Bitcoin on exchanges have been dropping. Look at it. It's been dropping since peak of 2020. And it continues to drop. Why does it continue to drop? Because the holders become stronger and stronger. More and more people just buy Bitcoin and just hold it and hodl it and hoard it. And more people have been doing so. Now, even people that's been holding for 10 plus years is holding more than the Bitcoin on the exchanges. Now, imagine the next bull run and imagine the next 10 years from here on out. As the reserves keep dropping, and you will see that like bell curve kind of shape, you're going to see Bitcoin reserve keep dropping on exchanges, possibly down to 1 million within the next 10 years, maybe even below that. And then the number of holded Bitcoin continues to rise up. What does that go do to the price? I mean, it's quite easy. Supply and demand. Supply keeps dropping, demand keeps going up. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. And this is just 10 plus. This is 10 plus years too, right? How many people have been holding Bitcoin for 10 years? Well, the ones that have, they're all billionaires now. I'll tell you that, because if you bought Bitcoin 10 years ago, you were buying it at like dollars, under a dollar each. Crazy stuff. All right, what else is going on? Well, everyone is still talking about Coinbase and their new chain base, and people are arguing that it is a massive confident vote for Ethereum. I mean, yes and no. Yes, that's true, and this may help incentivize others to jump on Ethereum. This also kind of solidifies Ethereum as like the de facto protocol for Web 3.0 dApps, sort of, right? But keep in mind, this is built on top of Optimism, and I know Optimism is a L2 for Ethereum, but still, it's not directly on Ethereum. But, you know, I think the real end game for this, for Coinbase, is not to really run a full-fledged chain. It's really to be a fiat on-ramp for these dApps. I think that's like their true motive here, although they're not sharing it like that. But I think their true motive is just to be a fiat on-ramp and charge some fees so they can make some more money. But regardless, as for Ethereum, it keeps going down in terms of the supply. The burning effect is really happening, and we're not even in the bull run yet. Okay, but ETH is really deflation at this point. You know, when they turned on proof of stake, you could see we had some up and downs in terms of the token supply. Now it's just dropping like a rock, and this will continue to drop and drop and drop as more usage comes in. And then lastly, I saw this. This is just funny. In high school in Massachusetts, this guy was mining Bitcoin and decided to route all these AC lines into these coolers that hosted or that held Bitcoin miners. And then finally he got caught. We have heard of this before, okay? If you're thinking about Bitcoin mining, don't try to steal electricity or cooling from your business, from your boss, from your school, right? Eventually you will get caught. And it's not good when you get caught. This guy is facing criminal charges. I'm assuming that if he or she turned 18, it'll be much worse because they'll be charged as an adult. But if they're still like, you know, 16 or something, I think it'll be better. But still, don't do it. Like, I don't know how you think you could get away with doing something like this long term. Eventually, someone is going to find out, right? Someone is going to catch you. But yeah. All right. That is it. Let's see what the market is at right now. About the same. Minus 370, minus 200. And Bitcoin is at 23.8, a little bit lower than yesterday. We peaked above 24 yesterday. Now we're down a little bit because of this hot PCE inflation data. But Bitcoin will rise. We will get through this like all previous times. All right, let's do some Q&A. Oh, Robert says it was an employee, not a miner. So that's even worse, I guess. All right, I'm scrolling down here. Let's see what I missed. No, I'm not an AI robot. I wonder what the Doge 256 says. I wonder what the next gift Satoshi will bless humanity with. I think he gave the biggest gift of all, and that's Bitcoin and Bitcoin network. I don't think he needs to give any more than that. Miles, good for you. Good for you. I like OP. Caspa, I'm not so sure of. There was a guy in my neighborhood. I don't know how this leaked out, but he was mining Bitcoin in his basement, but you could hear it. Like I didn't know until someone pointed out, but every time I went out for a walk, I could hear them whining from those mining rigs. And if I could hear from outside, it would have been horribly loud inside the house. But within the last few months, he shut it off. But, you know, there's a lot more Bitcoin miners than you think around. It feels like a Friday. I'm ready for a weekend. It does feel like a Friday. I'm ready to chill. I don't know if any of you guys watch Ant-Man. The reviewers are mixed. Some are bashing it, and some say it's good. So I'm wondering if it's worth watching Ant-Man. I'm thinking it can't be worse than the last Thor movie. The last Thor movie was pretty horrendous. So I'm hoping Ant-Man is not as horrendous. Ronaldo, appreciate it. I'm looking for something to stake. In my neck of the woods, there's FUD for Link. Is ETH the best, safest option besides an ETH32? Phil, there's a lot of options. You could stake Polygon. You could stake Cardano. You could stake Phantom. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, every single proof of stake coin can be staked. So it just depends on what you want to do. If you want to stake Ethereum, you were asking this the other day. If you want to stake Ethereum, go ahead. Nothing wrong with it. Someone says Ant-Man was good enough. Okay. It's good enough, I guess. I thought Ant-Man 2 was pretty bad. Ant-Man 1 was pretty good. Why do you think Gala is flagging in price compared to Sandbox and other gaming tokens? Where do you see it in years? It's not. It actually went up before Sandbox and Decentraland. So, no, it's not flagging in price. You mean stagnant in price? No, it's not. It's just that they haven't come up fully. We're not in a full-blown bull market. Okay, we're in recovery mode. Some of these projects have started moving up, but many of them have not, and they're still way off from their highs. But that's the beauty of it. You still have time to DCA and get your average down before we really start heading higher. Tyler, no, it's still going. Everything is going according to schedule. Is today Friday or tomorrow's Friday? People are trying to confuse me. No, today is Friday. Today is Friday. Unfortunately, a bloody Friday so far. Not getting any better. The predictions change. Ooh, ouch. Ouch. This did change. Now it's 40, almost 42% are predicting that the next rate hike will be 50 basis points now, not 25. Man, it was just at 30%. It went up like 10% within this stream. That's no good. Raymond, I got in late 2013, a couple cycles ago when Bitcoin went up to 1,000 for the first time. So I got in right around there and then saw it collapse. But I was mining Litecoin at the time. I got myself somewhat situated with mining, GPU mining at that time. Didn't quite understand, not a whole lot of exchanges. In fact, the exchange I was using at the time is now defunct and gone. But I really didn't understand things then. And then I came back in early 2017 and really educated myself, and that brings me to today. Brent asks, George, do you think ETH will eventually stand on its own 2 feet, or do you think it'll need layer 2s? Yeah, eventually. But the roadmap to implement a scaling solution for Ethereum was like 10 years or something. It was something very long. They're nowhere close of scaling fully, which, if you think about, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? All these other chains can scale already, and there's layer 2s that use ZK rollups for scaling. Why can't Ethereum just implement it quickly, right? If Ethereum implements some kind of ZK scaling solution within the next year or two, right? I don't see why that's difficult. I mean, I'm no programmer. I'm not Vitalik, so there's probably more complications to something as large as Ethereum. But all these other chains exist that can scale much better than Ethereum. So I don't quite know why it's taking so long. But regardless, eventually, yes, it will be able to operate just fine without layer 2s. It's looking worse now. Wait. Why didn't this refresh? There we go. Keeps defaulting in futures. Well, anyways, it's almost as bad. U.S. unveils $2 billion in Ukraine aid, sanctions, and tariff hikes on Russia a year after invasion. I don't know if sanctions and tariffs at this point is going to work. But what else are you going to do, right? There's no alternative other than to go to war, and no one wants that. Well, Bitcoin is still holding strong. It's about the same level as yesterday. Not above 24,000, but we could easily get back up there. DXY is still very high. I'll just leave it at this one. Gold will one day be integrated into blockchain. Townsley, no. There already are stable coins or coins backed by gold, but no one wants that. Why would you want that? We're trying to replace gold. We're not trying to create another gold. Bitcoin is already a digital version of gold, a better version of gold. So why would you want to bring in an ancient precious metal on top of the blockchain? Alchemy's Pay partnership with Google Pay. I didn't hear about that. But that sounds pretty good. Alchemy Pay is all about fiat on-ramp, right? So that's the space that Coinbase wants to get into. What is today? Coinbase is down another 3%. Tesla is down 4%. MicroStrategy is down about 2%. Whether or not I'm wearing pants is irrelevant to what's going on in the market today. Can we get an altcoin season before the next Bitcoin pump? No, that never happens. True altcoin seasons always happen after Bitcoin forms the top. And I'm talking about when altcoins really go up like 10x within a month. That usually happens after Bitcoin finds up top. Now, beforehand, can you see altcoins go up significantly, recover, and make new highs? Sure. But the crazy parabolic phase for altcoins usually happens at the very, very end. All right, guys. Let's call it a stream. Today, not looking good. Key inflation data, PCE data shows January, things went up, and that's not good. Now, you have a lot of predictions about the next rate hike being higher at 50 basis points. DXY is now coming up. These are all counterintuitive to a good market. So is this soft landing going to be derailed? Well, according to Janet Yellen, no. But we have some good things still going on in the U.S. We still have the job market being strong, unemployment being low, right? So it's just temporary. Could be because of how expensive eggs have become, right? Maybe it's just a temporary blip. But regardless if it is or not, more and more people are flocking to Bitcoin. Volume is exploding. We have a futures expiration today. Maybe that has something to do with what's going on with Bitcoin. But otherwise, we are still on track. We're still in recovery mode, and greater things will come. So have a happy Friday. No stream tonight, but I'll see you guys tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. All right? Have a good one, guys. Oh, by the way, I forgot to show you guys this. Take a look at this before you leave.
What do you think about Ripple?
Well, I mean, I think it's too centralized, but I definitely want to meet Chris Larson.